and welcome to the Golden Hour. I am Golden Duffy, your host, and we are on a sensitive topic today. It's a topic that I have not dived this deep into ever in any of my shows, but I'm feeling called to share something that is really important. And in our life's journey, when we go through really hard times, really tough times that really call us to more, that help us to process life in a different way, and we go back and we share our experiences, there's a healing that happens for us, the world, and for those that we're sharing our experiences with. So in that, I set the intention for this show for a healing experience for all of us, and for us to come to new understandings in the world in which we live, where we are not relying on outside sources to heal, but we're actually going within and understanding that we have the power. We have the power to heal ourselves. Our children have the power to heal themselves. They have the power to navigate this world without outside substances or sources or anything that's needed or necessary. We are all on a spiritual journey. We are all here to experience life to the fullest, with the ups, with the downs, with all the things that we are walking through and navigating. As parents or as caregivers of children, people that are younger than us, there's a deep understanding that needs to happen that we are all on a path, that we all have our very own individualized journeys. Now, my belief is that our children have chosen us to come into our experience and be parented by us. Now, in parenting, I like to share that we aren't here to necessarily mold our children and force them into being good people. We are here to grow with them, to learn with them, and expand. And if you've been a parent for any amount of time, and you're awakened, you will understand that a lot of what your kids do is brought to help you heal as well, to help you expand and grow as well. We are not here to save them. We are not here to protect them from all the evils of the world or to make sure that they are always safe, because the idea of that is, first of all, it's an illusion. We can't protect them and save them from every terrible thing in the world, because they have their own journeys and they're going to grow up one day and they're going to leave you. That's just the nature of what we want for them. We want them to be independent. We want them to know who they are. We want them to know their own voices, to know their own feelings, to know their own guidance. We don't want to necessarily set up relationships of codependency with our children where they can't make their own decisions. That happens a lot. And I see it in a lot of adults who have really relied on other people's advice and other people's voices and never come to a knowing and a trusting of their own inner voice. I think as a mother, that is the number one thing that I have wanted to pass on to my children, is for them to really connect with their inner voice. And let me tell you, it hasn't always served me. One daughter moved across the country because she was listening to her voice. I have another daughter who lives in another state because she was listening to her voice. So it's not always going to be what our agenda is or keeping them to us, but that's not what we're supposed to do. As parents, we are here to guide. We are here to grow with them. We are here to expand with them. And we are here to let them figure out life, navigate life, not to keep them from making their own mistakes. I remember as a teenager, one of my most frustrating things was that my parents were always so afraid that I was going to make a mistake. They were so afraid that I was going to get hurt, or they were so, all of that fear. If you're parenting from fear, it's not great, because you're passing that fear on, first of all, to your children. And I teach universal law. If this is the first show that you're catching, you can go back. There's lots of golden hours. If you're on my YouTube channel, you'll find all of my podcast episodes. And I do share a lot about parenting, growing spiritually, universal law, mindfulness, meditation. But in universal law, the idea is law of attraction says like attracts like. So what we focus on expands. So as we put that energy towards our children, oh, be careful of this and be careful of that and be careful of this, we are actually putting things in their experience that they could be creating from our fears. My daughters used to say all the time, and I've been teaching them this stuff since I learned it 12 years ago. They would say, Mom, don't put your fears on me, because I'm human and I'm a mom. And of course I have, I don't want this to happen to you. But anytime we're focused on what we don't want to happen to them, we are expanding that. We are putting our attention on that. We are letting that grow. So a little bit of quantum physics, in case this is the first show you're catching of mine. This wave behind me represents the wave of energy, the wave of energy field. So basically we have thoughts, we have feelings, and our emotions. And our emotions, not all of our thoughts manifest, thank goodness, because good Lord. But what does manifest are our emotions, because emotions are energy in motion. So you have a thought, you have a feeling, you have an emotion, you have a belief that starts to go out into the wave. And as that wave gets stronger and stronger, it breaks down and becomes physical matter in our experience. So we start to get evidence of our feelings, of our beliefs. That's why bad moments turn into bad days for people, because they're so focused on that bad moment. They tell everybody about it, right? It becomes their whole day because they have focused on that one moment. So when it comes to parenting, when our kids start to go through things, and they're going to go through things, adolescence, hormones, all the things that are happening to them, their prefrontal cortex right here, which is where they process emotions, is not fully developed until age 25. Yeah, so you got young adults, 19, 20 years old. That is probably one of the most that I've seen with my kids, was one of the most challenging times, when they are trying to find their identity in the world and they're trying to figure out who they are. And many of these kids are, pushed into college, where now all of a sudden they have all this freedom. And if you've been a helicopter parent, if you've had this codependency relationship, they don't have the skill level, they don't have the inner guidance connection to really make these solid decisions. So I think the number one biggest thing we can do is help our kids to figure out that inner guidance, to really connect with what's going on within. What is my heart saying? What are my emotions? What am I feeling? Because, we live in a society where we're working on distraction all the time. We're distracting ourselves from our feelings through social media, through television, through, shopping, through drugs, through alcohol, through all the things. And because of that, we have lost that deep interconnection to our spirituality, to our higher states of consciousness, to the truth of who we are. So if you are in a situation where you've got a child in your experience, young adult, teen, adolescent, even younger, that is having issues, having challenges processing emotions, it's normal. It's normal. We need to normalize this. We need to normalize the fact that our kids have negative emotions, that we have negative emotions, and we've got to work on processing them versus distracting ourselves or taking a pill so we don't feel. That's some of the things in here you may not agree with on me. And I say this all the time, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just hear me out, because there are seeds in here that need to be planted if we're going to become a more powerful society, and if we're going to take our power back from the drug companies and all of these people that keep telling us that we are not okay. They keep telling us that we cannot heal. If you ever study Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, these are incredibly brilliant scientists in the world that will tell you our bodies are healing mechanisms. Our cells replenish every couple of days. We heal ourselves and not reach outside. Now, when it comes to parenting, I want to connect with your inner guidance on this, because if your inner guidance goes against what I am saying, I want you to follow your inner guidance, because every child is different and every situation is different. And what I did with my kids may not be the route that you want to take, but I will tell you this is probably going to be a pretty long show. I'm going to try to keep it to the hour. I'm going to tell you all of the experiences that I had and the do's and don'ts that I did, and what I learned along the way of getting hyper involved and hyper concerned and hyper worried, and how it stagnated. I felt the process. Now, the process is the process. I'm not going to beat myself up for what I experienced, because now I know, and now I can share that. Okay. understanding that your child has their own journey, and if they are experiencing feelings of pain, if they are cutting, if they are suicidal, if they have shared with you, first of all, that they want to hurt themselves, that is a huge win. Because if they are communicating to you, that means they are open to solutions. They would not be communicating with you if they were planning on ending their life. Okay, so that's number one. It's a really good thing that they communicated with you. So feel some gratitude for that. If they won't open up to you and tell you how they're really feeling, just relax. You don't need to force that, and trying to force that is going to make them dig their heels in even deeper. Just continually remind them that you are there for them, that you love them, that if they need a hug, you're here. If they will hug you, hugging releases oxytocin, serotonin, all of the good hormones. So if you can get them to hug you, hug them. We hug in my household a ton. At least 3 or 4 or 5 times a day of each person we hug, because we know how important hugging is. We know how important that connection is. We know how important it is to feel that love from another person and to know that you are not alone. That's what hugging is. It's knowing that you're not alone. So if they'll let you hug them, if they won't let you hug them, squeeze their hand, touch them in some way. If you can touch them, that human touch. Think about this. This is crazy. They've done studies of babies that were not loved, they weren't held, they died. The babies died because we need human connection, we need touch, we need love, we need to feel like we are a part of something. Love is what makes us thrive and grow. So our answer is always add more love to the situation. Okay. All right. So, a note of feeling too much of their pain. So this was something that I definitely walked through. So I'll just share. I'm going to be super vulnerable today, and I'm going to share some really deep stuff with my family. I'm hoping, I believe that my daughters are in a place where they may even come on and share on the show, which I think would be amazing. But I have 2 daughters that were cutting, 2 daughters that were actually 3 daughters that were suicidal. Um, 2 with eating disorders that were extremely serious, like almost to the point of hospitalization. So I'm not speaking from not having experience on this stuff. I have walked several of my children through some very dark and painful times, and not coming out unscathed myself, because it was deep and it was dark and it was painful for me to watch them go through that, but also brought a lot of things up for me that I needed to work on, that I needed to journal through, that I needed to do some energy release work with. So first of all, when you walk through this much pain with someone, you're always you come from the problem, right? Like you're worried. You're like, this is a parenting thing too, a mom thing especially. Oh my gosh, I got to fix this. I got to figure out how. I mean, literally, these little beings we have grown in our bellies, and every single hurt that they've had and every problem they've had, we have come to their aid. And now that they're getting older, it's a lot more challenging to do that. The bigger the child, the bigger the problems, right? So, in understanding that, if you can work on not being in the problem, I was in the problem so deeply, I couldn't even see out. Like I was up all night worrying. This is when my one daughter was 95 pounds. She hadn't eaten in 6 weeks that I know of. She hadn't touched a piece of food in 6 weeks. And I was so distraught and I was so searching consistently, but I was so in the problem that I couldn't find a proper solution. So if you're doing that and if you are so immersed in their problem and in their pain, know that you can't fix it from there. You will only keep it going, right? Law of attraction. We just keep emulating it because we're magnetizing to it, because we're creating from it, because we're consistently feeling it. So we cannot help them if we feel sorry for them or if we're in too much of their pain. We have to understand, we have to come above it. We've got to get into a higher perspective and go, okay, this is the way they're feeling right now. What is the greatest solution? And getting yourself, if you don't have a meditation practice, I'm telling you right now, that is going to be your lifesaver. I have a group on Facebook. It's called the M21 Revolution. Ask to join. We have free, let me find it. We have free challenges. I mean, we have a free group, donation-based challenges. We just did a 21-day challenge. And if you go there, it's pinned to the top of the group and you can do it totally for free. 21 days of guided meditations to help you start a meditation practice if you don't have one. Meditation is going to be your lifeline. I'm telling you, because what meditation is going to do for you is it separates you from your thoughts and it gives you a little bit of space so you don't have to choose those worrisome, anxious, problem-oriented thoughts. You can gain a little bit of space and you can start working on your own healing journey. So you can work on what's coming up for you. You won't connect to what's coming up for you if you're running around trying to fix everybody else. You got to start with yourself first. This is a calling for you to heal something within yourself first. So in that, I did work with some energy healers. Let me tell you, I went to everybody. I did energy healing. We tried several therapists. And I will say, if you're going to do counseling with your child, just really use their guidance, because if the counselor doesn't make them feel better, if you don't notice that they're lighter coming out of those appointments, keep looking, because we had a lot of counselors that just kept perpetuating the problem with them and didn't actually help them find solutions. So we've been through a lot of different therapists. Right now, we're really into energy workers, energy healers. We really love just the release work that happens in the way that we feel after. I've seen energy healers forever, and I love the idea of just moving energy out of your body. So we've done a lot of that. We did not go the medicine route. And one thing about the medicine that terrified me was one is being labeled, first of all, being labeled as, I mean, I have children, you guys, that could have been labeled as bipolar. We actually have, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and only 1% of things are genetic. So I know this, right? These are top scientists in the world that have told me only 1% of things are actually genetic. The rest of them are beliefs and connections to that genetic belief that things are genetic. So I refuse to believe this about my children. The idea of labeling ourselves with something that we don't have the ability to heal is so off to me. It's so off to me that we need to take a pill to be okay is very off to me. It doesn't sit right. I believe in our natural ability to heal. I believe in plant medicine. I believe in being able to course correct, to correct the whatever's going on with our hormones, to be able to do that naturally. Now, if you're being guided towards medicine, I just want you to understand a couple of things. This is not to scare you. I do have several examples of kids who were medicated and actually committed suicide or overdosed because they were taking anti-anxiety medicine, they were taking ADHD medicine, and they were taking antidepressants. These doctors are giving out a lot of things all at once with no understanding of the consequences. So I do know kids who have died from being over-medicated or committed suicide because these medications exasperated the thought patterns that cause that. I mean, there's warning labels on a lot of these things. So just do your homework, do your research, and go with your inner guidance. The other piece of this, I talked to a lot of people. I talked to my daughters, I talked to their friends who were medicated, who are medicated. They lose a little sense of themselves. They lose a little bit of their personality, and they lose the ability to really feel like a huge capacity of joy. So you lose something in that. Now your kid you may feel they're safe on them, but they're not going to be themselves. And if you start someone on medication, it's very possible that they will feel like they need to be on it for life. So that was another reason that I chose not to go that route. Let me tell you, there were times when I was like, oh my goodness, I think we're going to have to do this. Maybe we should do this. And if my kids weren't so adamantly against it, maybe I would have researched and gotten into it a little bit more. But my kids were pretty adamant that they didn't want to do that. And I respected that. And I also don't believe that there is, a pill to make everything all better. Life is hard. Life is hard. Life is challenging. There is a navigation process that needs to happen for us to get through that piece of life being hard, that belief that life is hard. Because as a teenager, as an adolescent, they can only see what's in front of them right now. and everything is bigger than it is. It's molehills to mountains to them. So they feel more intensely, especially if you have a sensitive one. I have ones that feel emotions very deeply. That was very hard for me to understand. If you have a child who was overly sensitive as a baby, like to tags or seams in their socks or things like that, they feel stronger, they feel deeper than most people, so they have to be their process needs to be navigated a little differently. So my advice would be energy healers, anyone who can help them to release energy out of their body. Nature is huge. I would take my daughter and we would lay under a tree and we would just lay there and we would either read or just be together or whatever she needed to do in that day. We would lay underneath a tree and she would say to me, "This is the most peace I've ever felt." So if you can get them out in nature, nature is the great restorer. Also grounding, getting their feet on the ground, because we are so disconnected from the earth. The vibration of the earth is the vibration of everything. So if you can get back to that and get their feet on the ground, bring them to the ocean, those ocean waves. If you can get them in the ocean, that is massive. My two girls right now go to the ocean every single day and go for a swim. We are very blessed to live in Southern California where they literally drive by the ocean every day. They go and they jump in the ocean every day. That is alchemy. It cleanses your whole soul. Water, showers, Epsom salts, whatever you can do to cleanse them is massive. All right. So just know feeling their pain is not going to help them to navigate it. You got to take a step back. You got to detach a little bit and you got to have some faith, really have some faith. So crazy story. I'll just share this really quick and then I'll give you all my little tips here, but crazy story. My daughter's in a lot of pain. She is cutting. She is not eating. She is really, 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 really thin. And it was really hard for me to not see her as that, right? So I keep seeing this and I keep seeing her getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And, they start to get like their shoulders, like you can see their shoulder bones. And it's just, oh my goodness. Like I just get these images of people in the hospital, right? Which is not good. You're projecting what you don't want when you do that. So she's in so much pain. I am feeling her pain at a visceral level where I even went to a psychic. Yeah, I actually went to a psychic this first time and last time I ever went to a psychic. But I went to a psychic because I was like, okay, how long is this going to last? Is my baby going to live? I need to know what's going on. Should I bring her to the hospital? It was all these I was so unsure and so afraid. And she gave me a timeline, which was really interesting. I think it was 8 months that we were going to deal with this. And it was spot on. Everything she said was spot on. Now, psychics give us beliefs, right? So I don't know about that. Anyways, so I'm like so distraught. And this is what the psychic tells me. She goes, "You're going to do something with the Rwandan genocide." I was like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, have you ever heard of the Rwandan genocide?" I'm like, no, not at all. That has nothing to do with me. I was like, whatever. So about a couple days later, I'm so distraught. I don't know what to do with myself. So I go and I get my nails done. And as I'm getting my nails done, I just get this very strong intuition to go to the bookstore. So I'm like, all right, whatever, I'll go to the bookstore. Like I got to go research. I got to go do something. Like whenever I don't have an answer, I will always go research. Like I will look for a book. I will look for guidance. I'm like, give me something, right? So I go to the bookstore and I find myself in front of this book. And I literally walk in the bookstore and something just leads me right in front of this book. And it was called Live to Tell. And I was like, that's weird. And it's about the Rwandan genocide. What? So I opened the book up and the foreword is by Wayne Dyer. And Wayne Dyer, he died on my birthday. I just adore him. You can find him on YouTube. He's written so many books. He's so wise, so incredibly wise. And he said this was the greatest book he ever read on faith. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm reading it. So as I'm reading this horrible book about this genocide, I mean, this genocide was incredible, horrible, dead bodies everywhere, something I would never, ever read because law of attraction, I don't tune myself into that stuff. As I'm reading the book and I start to get through it, this woman and 5 or 6 other women locked themselves in a bathroom for 3 months because she was being hunted. And they were literally given like a plate of food every couple of days that they shared. And when she came out of that bathroom, when she was finally saved, and she lived to tell, she does speaking and stuff, she said she was 65 pounds, 65 pounds. And I thought, okay, if she can live through this, and the faith and the trust that she had in God in walking through this was just mind blowing. So I read that, and that gave me all of this, like, oh my gosh, like the journey and the faith and the trust. And this is her dark night of the soul. So if you don't know what a dark night of the soul is, it's basically where we go through these really hard times, these really deep depressions, or these really, we're processing all of these dark emotions, that shadow self. And when we come out of it, we become more spiritual and lighter and freer. And that is definitely the experience of my daughter. So I'm happy to say that both of my daughters are extremely healthy and extremely happy and very spiritual now, that we've come through all of this. And it came through a process of me detaching. I remember talking to this woman who was so sweet, and she gave me her time. She was a coach, and she said, you've got to detach from this. This is eating you alive, and you can't do anything about it. You need to like pull back and gain some perspective so that you can actually help the situation instead of hindering it by being so deep in the problem. So that's what I did. I pulled away from it a little bit. I started seeing her healthy and happy. I started telling her that she was going to figure this out. I started demanding that we were going to get solutions. We hired nutritionists. We've spent tens of thousands of dollars in nutritionists. And, I do believe a lot in the gut brain health, in creating some healing in the gut. You need to have a adolescent or teenager who's willing to take vitamins and figure that process out. But blood work was helpful. And we also did a lot of supplements and a lot of different things to help kind of get them out of that. But initially, they had to be ready. They had to be ready to grow from this before any growth actually took place. Okay. One of the biggest things is putting this label on our kids and making them think that there's something wrong with them. Like, that is the biggest thing. Is I tell my daughters all the time when they're navigating stuff and it's hard and they're depressed, or they're feeling bad, or what I say, there's nothing wrong with you. This is the human experience. And what can we do now to help you feel better? What can you do? Because we can do something. We can always do something. No matter how depressed you are, you can do something. You can put on good music. You can sit in the sunshine. Getting that vitamin D is so important. I know they've told us the sun is poison, and it's such a lie. Getting vitamin D into our bodies helps to increase those good levels of hormones. Also, understanding dopamine dumps. So I love the Netflix special about the issues with these phones and social media and all of that. They're dopamine dumping us. That's what they're doing. TikTok is a huge dopamine dump because it's got that fast moving energy, and what's happening is our bodies are getting depleted of dopamine. And so we don't have any way to restore it or replenish it. Now, ways you can are being out in nature, being out in the sun, running, exercising, yoga. If you can get them moving their bodies, then you'll get energy out of their body, because energy is getting stuck in their body and it's making them feel even worse. All right. So a little thing about cutting, do some research on cutting. I have girls with scars, and it's just, oh my gosh, the first time I found a giant knife in my daughter's room and found the scars, the cuts on her arm, I thought I was going to lose my mind. I really did, because you think suicide, you think, oh my God, she's trying to kill herself. And honestly, cutting is very, very often not linked to suicide. Cutting is actually a way for them to release pain and to distract themselves from the way they're feeling. It's to actually help them to feel something, because they're so numbed out by their despair that they're trying to feel something. I actually cut when I was younger. I had cut like a cross on my arm. Part of it was like about being cool, but I remember being extremely depressed. And I remember my dad This is like one really significant thing I remember about being with my dad. And he laid in bed with me and he asked me what was wrong. I was 12 years old. He asked me what was wrong. And I was able to talk to him like for the first time probably ever, because my parents were disciplinarians. I didn't really feel like I could talk to them or relate to them. And that connection really helped me to heal at that point in my life where I didn't ever do that again. So if they're cutting, research it. Research what cutting is about and help them to understand that there has to be other outlets for them to express they won't carry scars with. So my daughter is actually very kind of proud of them. Like this is part of her story and what she went through. I'm sure she'll get a tattoo and cover them at some point. But if they're cutting, it doesn't necessarily mean they're trying to kill themselves. Now, if they've come to you and they said they want to hurt themselves, that's, like I said, a good thing, because now you've got stuff to work with and now you can open the lines of communication. But like labeling them as suicidal or any of that is so big and so vast and so unnecessary. If you can just get them talking, communicating, and understanding how to navigate emotions, and then maybe put some kind of ways to up level those happy hormones in their body through either nature or supplements, it's a great idea to start to just navigate that process. But getting them to communicate is important, but not in an annoying way. You can't be annoying. If you're annoying, they're not going to talk to you. One other big mistake that I made was being hyper concerned. So always asking them how they were doing or always talking about. By the way, we never called this an eating disorder. I don't know if I think I did say that. We called it disordered eating because we never wanted to label them as having an eating disorder, because that feels so powerless and that also feels like identity. So be careful what identity they're taking on. So we would call it disordered eating, which is always connected to control. So what did they feel like they didn't have control over in their lives, and helping them to maintain a certain type of control. If you are a helicopter parent, if you are a disciplinarian parent, and there's a lot of rules and a lot of things that you are making them abide by without asking their opinion ever, they're going to feel powerless and they're going to do it and they're going to express in a lot of different risky ways. So open communication has 1,000% been our secret. Here is my book on Amazon. It's called Quantum Speak for Parents. This is all about energetic parenting. You can find this on Amazon. You might have to search it with my name. It's all about energetic parenting and how the energy that we present to our kids and how we feel about them and how we look at them and how we talk to them really conducts what happens in our family life and the peace that we experience in our family. If you are consistently looking at your child for what is wrong with them, you are going to keep vibrating with that. You're going to keep tuning into that radio station of what is wrong with them. We have to look beyond that. We have to look beyond that. We have to look for their good qualities. We have to focus on their good qualities. One of my favorite things to suggest is to write a positive aspect sheet on them every day. What's good about them? Have them do that about themselves if you can. What's good about them? It could be little, but if it's something and you tune into that, you'll start to see more of it with them instead of trying to always course correct them or correct them for what they're not doing right, which actually decimates their self-esteem and self-confidence. When you're constantly picking on your child and trying to make them be a certain thing that they're not, you're totally killing their self-esteem and self-confidence. It's funny. A funny show on Netflix is Unstable with Rob Lowe. And his real son is on the show. It's hysterical, but he does this with his son. He's constantly undermining him. He's constantly putting him down. But they come full circle. It's a really good show to watch. Make your house a place of peace and not a war zone. Good Lord, did we do war zone for a while? Yeah. One thing I learned with one of my daughters long time ago was that anger could actually be a sign of depression. We ended up actually in the hospital with our daughter. She tried to commit suicide many, many years ago. And it was hard, man. That was really, really hard. And I didn't believe her. This is horrible. This is so horrible. Like this is the parenting journey that I've been on. I didn't believe her. I didn't trust her. She got caught at a party. Okay. She got caught at a party and she came home and we took her cell phone away. And it was like we had taken off a limb. That's how crazy she went. And we took her cell phone away. And then it's New Year's Eve. It's freezing cold out. I mean, below zero. We're in the East Coast, below zero. I just make this beautiful dinner for myself, my husband, my daughter, and her boyfriend. And my daughter gets a text from the girl who got caught upstairs saying she took a bottle of aspirin and she doesn't feel good and she thinks she's going to die. So now we have to take her to the emergency room. And I am so angry. Like I was already angry at her. I am so angry. And I can't see past this because I'm in my own unawakened space and my own, stuff, like learning to be a mom, like just trying to navigate this whole thing. This is my first run with teenagers. My second run was a lot better. And so we go to the hospital and they have to give her charcoal and they're keeping her overnight. And I left. And I said, I can't stay here with you. And I left my baby there all by herself. And we probably have some things to talk about today from that experience because it was brutal. I still can't believe that I did that. But afterwards, she went to a psych ward for a little while, realized how incredible her life is and her parents after seeing some of the kids in there. But the doctor said to me, do you know that she's depressed? And depression can be, anger can be a sign of depression. I was like, no, she's not. She's a bitch, And then I started to realize, and then I started to have compassion for her. And once I started to gain compassion for her and stopped being this like disciplinarian, untrusting, angry mom, we started to heal our relationship and things started to improve. We went on a long journey with her. We're very blessed today to have an incredible relationship and so much love for her. But it was tough. It was challenging. So whatever you're going through right now, and if you haven't navigated it to the best that you think you can, it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up and realize these are people. These are people with their own spiritual journeys here, with their own human journeys here. And they're here to navigate the ups, the downs, the mistakes, the failures, the successes, all of it. And it's not up to us to make sure that we put them in a little box and they end up being good humans. It's not. The best way that we can do that is through our example, through our living, breathing example of who we are and what we believe in our morals and our values. And one of the other things, and I don't say this to like scare you or to scare your teenager if you want to share this. I always share it with my daughter. Just recently, we've been talking about this and I'm like, man, if you end it, I feel like you're going to have to come back and do it again. Like, I feel like it's just a pause and you're going to have to come back and do it all over again. So I don't know. We are a deeply spiritual family and we talk about things like that. And it's like, we just got to, figure out how to navigate it now. And I talk a lot to my kids about how life is relentless. It is always going to be coming at you. And sometimes you're going to be at the peak of the mountain and it's going to be so awesome and you're going to be so high and life is going to be so joyful. And then it's going to be a valley. And that valley, that contrast, that challenge that you're going through makes the mountain feel even better. It gives you a greater capacity for joy. It gives you more gratitude for the goodness and the things that are working out. So understand that. The peaks and the valleys are so necessary. And if your child is going through a valley right now and it feels deep and it feels dark and it feels scary, don't send them worry. Stop sending them worry. Stop tuning into your anxiety about it. Anxiety and worry is a focus on what you don't want to happen. When you focus on what you don't want to happen, you create more of that in your experience, right? The wave, it breaks down and it gives you evidence of it. So they're going to give you more reasons to worry about them. The more you worry about them. The greatest exercise I ever started was wrapping my kids in angels, because I got to the point, listen, I've been doing this for 31 years. Good Lord. 31 years of parenting. I got to the point where I couldn't stay awake anymore. I couldn't wait up anymore. So I started going to sleep and wrapping them in angels before I went to sleep. So instead of torturing yourself and waiting until they get home at night to make sure they're safe, how about we just trust that they're going to be safe? And if they're not, you're going to know, because the universe is going to let you know. God is going to let you know. So there's a big trust and faith that happens when we have kids. The minute they come out and they're on that outside world, there's only so much we can do to protect them and keep them safe. But our fears and our worries and anxieties are not it. They're just going to make the journey harder, and they're going to make your relationship with them more strained. Because I always love to say to my kids, I trust you. I say this with my husband too. I trust him. I trust him explicitly to make the right decisions. When you tell somebody you trust them, that empowers them. That makes them feel like they're trustworthy. And then they go, oh, okay, well, I should probably trust myself, right? So that energy of trust, I trust you. And you may not feel it at first. You may have to say it, like fake it till you make it kind of a thing. But once you start to really say it and you start to believe it, your relationship with them will change. It will absolutely change. And I have 4 incredible daughters that I trust. We have an incredible amount of trust and communication because we have worked on this together. Okay, let me see what I've missed. Yeah, wrapping in angels. That's one of the greatest things I think I've done for everyone, for anyone in your life, anyone who's sick, anyone who's going through something. When we worry and we feel sorry for people, we are on the same frequency as them and we can be of no help. So when we raise our vibration to faith, to trust, to prayer, to calling in their angels, calling in our angels, calling in our guides, we actually support them. We actually create an empowerment of their experience instead of a disempowerment of it. When we're giving advice to our kids, and one challenge I've had is listening to my kids and not giving them advice because of what I do. It's really hard to not give advice, all the time. But it doesn't help them to connect with their inner guidance, and it doesn't help them to feel like I'm listening, that someone has heard them. We recently got into a little thing with one of our kids, and she didn't feel heard. She didn't feel like we were hearing her, and she wasn't hearing us. Not a teaching opportunity when you're in that state, right? When emotions are high, logic is low. So taking some space and coming back together when everybody's calmed down is going to make things a little bit easier, a little bit more productive. So if you're going through something, I know you'll go to the ends of the earth for your children. I would chop off an arm. I would give my life. I would do anything for my kids. But the truth is, when you put their well-being above your own and you consistently overgive and try to overlove them into being okay, you teach them a really harsh lesson. And that lesson is that we should people please and we should try to save people. And it's not empowering to anybody. And it's not good for us either, because we're basically saying if our kids are not okay, we're not okay. And they're outside of us, they're going to make their own path. There's been plenty of children who had wonderful mothers who chose really challenging paths that their mothers feel shame for, even though it wasn't their fault, right? Like we have this idea that we're going to screw things up and that it's going to be our fault and that we're doing the wrong things. And the truth is, if you are listening to your inner guidance, if you are really listening to your inner guidance, if you're researching, I used to read every parenting book on the planet because I just wanted to be the best mom. I was a stay-at-home mom. I dedicated my whole life to my kids. And at times that has felt like I let myself go in that. I didn't know who I was, once they started to get older, it was like, and then I started to find my passions, but there was this feeling of, well, who am I if they're going to leave me? That's probably the biggest symptom of empty nest syndrome, is not knowing who you are as a person because you gave everything to your child. So we've got to pull back a little bit. We are people too, and we matter too. So, and understanding how the difference between disempowerment and empowerment is empowering them to their own inner voice, empowering them to making their own choices, empowering them to connect with their feelings, to know what feels good to them, to know what feels right for them. I have two daughters that chose to homeschool. That was really hard. Yeah, at the end of their high school career, I mean, one was because of COVID. We weren't going back to school wearing masks. But the other one, high school was really hard for her and she didn't connect with people and she was miserable. And so she homeschooled, and I would have never chosen that. And I would have never thought that that was a good choice, right? So it's listening to their inner guidance, and it's understanding that they have their own little journeys here and they're going to figure it out. They are going to figure it out. And if God forbid they don't and they end their life, I have coached people through that. I have coached actually people who have committed suicide, and that is really, really challenging. And the person that I coached who ended up dying, I actually didn't coach them. I had a few talks with them. They were in a lot of pain. They were in a tremendous, tremendous amount of pain. And there was no other solution for them. No matter what I said, no matter what their mother said, no matter what their father said, that was the journey that they were on. So you can do all these things, but if you're doing it out of fear that they're going to do that, that's the energy that you're promoting. So I've seen a lot of kids manipulate their parents with that one too. So just be aware that the journey is the journey, and whatever happens, it's part of all of our spiritual journeys to walk through. And when you wrap your kids in angels and you see them as well, I believe that's what's going to happen. I really do. With all of my heart and all of my soul, watching my kids walk through so many hard things. I've actually walked people through, I had someone living with me for a while who had an addiction to heroin, and watching him and telling him how much I loved him and hugging him and bringing him into our family and sharing, the goodness that is him, the brilliance that is him, and telling him how good he was. It didn't end well. He ended up leaving us, but he did end up getting off of drugs and joining the military. So it did end well. For our relationship, it did not, but I still send him love and I still wrap him in angels. And I do believe that was a success. So if that's what you're going through, heroin's tough, man. Like those massive drugs that put in a lot of, that really deplete people's good hormones, and it alters you for life, but it's not impossible for them to get off, but you've got to stop beaming the light of there's something wrong with you and start figuring out what is right and working from there. And they have to be willing. They absolutely have to be willing. I will say, I feel like love is the answer. Anytime you are struggling with anything with your kids, apply more love. That has always been our answer. Love them more. It's funny because I've had people in my life who actually are not there anymore that thought that we really spoiled our children. And and by spoiled, I think, the idea is that we love our kids. Like we really, really love them. We don't overindulge them. We don't give them too much. In fact, now we're at a point where we let things manifest for them. We don't just swoop in and save them. We really do let things manifest. We say, all right, let's see what manifests from this. We got your back. If you need us, we got your back. But we don't just like hand over the money all the time, because that doesn't teach them anything. That doesn't teach them to be a powerful creator. So we're like, all right, let's see. Let's figure out what you want. Let's write it down. And then let's see what manifests. And like 9.999% of the time, they end up figuring it out and manifesting it. And then they feel really proud of themselves without us swooping in and trying to save them. And we've done it because we're parents and we're processing and we're trying to figure this thing out, and we want our kids to be happy and we want our kids to be okay. But we also want our kids to navigate this experience without causing detriment, without giving them labels, without giving them medication, without giving them crutches. We want them to navigate life so that they can come out of this and awaken to their own spirit, to their own spirituality. And that's definitely what's happened in our family. All right, let me see if I missed anything. Woo! All right. Remember, we are our children's greatest examples. So if you are having issues with your own emotions, if you are having issues with substances, if you are having issues with dopamine dumping, all of those things, they are watching you. If you are not getting out in nature, if you are not being in the lightheartedness of life, if you're stressed, if they walk into your house and it's a dark and gloomy and disorganized place, that's huge. I shared a while ago that my daughter's room was a disaster. Like, I used to take pictures and show it to my friends because it was such a disaster. Like, you could not see the floor. There were things from floor to ceiling. I mean, it was just crazy. And now her room is probably the most spiritual, most peaceful place in the house. So what's going on internally will show externally. So if your house is a mess, let's start there. Let's start with getting organized. Let's start with getting spaces that feel better. Bring crystals into your house. Bring plants into your house. Bring the life into your house. Turn off the electronics and the noise all the time. Put on really good music. Super into stick figure, super into the elevators. I love music that's high vibe, that has a message. Put that on in the background. Dance in your kitchen. Dancing is one of the greatest ways to release energy. If you can get them dancing, it is such a win. My daughter is a hip hopper, and let me tell you, when she dances, that's when she feels alive. So find what makes them sing. Find what makes them feel alive. I have another daughter that's gotten back into art, and she's making all these really cute things. She made this incense holder and this little mushroom. So she's like, oh my God, I'm loving art. So I'm going to have her paint a wall outside. Like, we have all these ideas. Art, creativity, writing, expression. That helps move energy out of the body, and it helps to give them a purpose, help them to find a way to be useful, whether it's through a job or through helping around the house. I mean, I know it's hard to get teenagers to do things, but help them to feel useful, whether it's, volunteering for little kids or anything you can do that will help them to feel like they're a part of something and that life makes a little bit of sense, right? Right? I know, because it doesn't always make sense to us. So also relating to that, sharing with them your struggles. If we're always looking so perfect, there's a show out, a movie out with Steve Carell called Beautiful Boy, and his son was a drug addict. Amazing story, by the way. And one of his son's biggest issues was that he felt like he was shadowed by his dad. His dad was so amazing. So when we share and we relate in our own struggles, and that we're not perfect, and that, navigating this emotional field is part of everyone's experience, they may open up to us more because they won't feel like, oh, she's going to judge me for that. That was one of the biggest things that I had to stop is like freaking out or judging them or getting all crazy. When you get all crazy, the kids don't want to share stuff with you when you get crazy. So you got to chill out. You got to get that meditation practice dialed in so that you're a calmer mom, so that the peace in your home, the wife is the one, the mother is the one that runs the household energy. If you're the one there the most, if it's the dad, he can be the dad. For the most part, it's us. That energy that you're promoting every day is what's creating a peaceful or not peaceful family. So you're the one that conducts the energy. So it all starts with you. So that's my show for today. I hope that was helpful. I have a couple other books out. Mindful Manifestation Secrets Daily Guide and Journal will help you in journaling and clearing. Maybe buy this for your teenager. It's a great book. It's on Amazon. Beautiful, beautiful book that will inspire their journey maybe to read. And to write. It's all about universal law. And then there's tons of journaling and affirmations. It's really just a beautiful book. My other book is Mindful Manifestation Secrets, that will give you kind of the beginning story of law of attraction and how we sold everything we owned. We lived in Connecticut and moved to California and followed our dream, and how we did that and how to manifest energy. Those are all available on Amazon. Mindful Manifestation Secrets Daily Guide and Journal, and Mindful Manifestation Secrets. And M21 Revolution is on Facebook. If you want to learn to meditate, I highly recommend this group. It is such a beautiful community. There's a couple hundred people in there that all love and want to live an amazing life, an incredible life. So I send you all the greatest amount of love and just, just a feeling of everything's going to be okay. We take life so seriously. We get so heavy. It's going to be okay. We're all doing okay. We're all doing all right. I tell that to my kids all the time. We're doing okay. We're doing all right. We just got to keep going. That's all we got to do is just keep going. Keep reaching. Keep looking for reasons to feel gratitude. Keep looking for the beauty of life because it's precious and it's there. And keep loving one another. It's so important. All right. Love y'all. Peace out.